It started with the rain. I was standing at the kitchen sink in my modest apartment, staring out the window at the storm clouds gathering above when I got the call. My 6-year-old son Caleb was supposed to be spending the weekend at my sister Vanessa's house, part of a guilt war. I should have trusted my gut the moment I dropped him off. Vanessa had smiled, sure, but it was that tight plastic smile she gave when she was being forced to play nice. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. She'll warm up eventually, Mom had said as she hugged me goodbye at the curb. She's just stressed about the wedding. I'd nodded, not wanting to stir up more tension. Vanessa had always been the golden child. The perfect hair, the perfect grades, the family-funded college degree. When she announced her engagement last fall, my parents practically threw a parade. Meanwhile, I was the single mom with too many opinions. The black sheep who worked 2 jobs and didn't rely on handouts. The call came from Caleb's tiny, trembling voice. "Mommy, can you come get me?" Auntie Nessa said I'm too loud and she told me to go outside. I froze. "What do you mean outside, baby? It's raining." "I'm outside. It's cold." His sniffle broke something in me. I dropped the phone and ran. I didn't grab a coat. I didn't grab keys. I barely remembered to lock the door behind me as I ran down the stairs, heart pounding so loud I couldn't hear the storm anymore. I drove with shaking hands, windshield wipers screaming against the downpour. When I pulled up to Vanessa's pristine suburban house, I saw him, Caleb, sitting curled up on the porch, soaked to the bone. His little backpack beside him was open books and socks spilling out drenched. His lips were blue. His eyes were red. He didn't even cry when I lifted him into my arms. He just leaned into me like a ghost and whispered, "She hit me with the shoe, Mama." I was just singing. I wasn't yelling. My fingers tightened around his small back as I carried him to the car. I didn't bother knocking on the door, but Vanessa came out anyway, casually, like nothing had happened, holding a mimosa, her makeup untouched by the weather. "Oh, come on. It wasn't that serious." He was being obnoxious, screaming like a banshee while I was on a Zoom call. I needed peace. I turned slowly. "You hit him. Don't be dramatic." She laughed. Actually laughed. It was a slipper. Kids need discipline. I opened the car door. "You threw my son into a thunderstorm. He's fine." She raised an eyebrow. "Honestly, if you weren't such a coddling single mom, maybe he wouldn't be so." I didn't hear the rest. I'd already slammed the door. The rage came later. The shaking came first. When I got Caleb home wrapped in 3 towels, fed him soup, kissed his forehead 100 times, that's when my body remembered how to cry, but the fury that simmered in silence. The worst part wasn't Vanessa. It was what came after. When I called my parents and told them what happened, there was a long pause. Then my mother said, "You always exaggerate, honey." And my father added, "Vanessa's just stressed with the wedding. Don't ruin her moment. Not a single word about Caleb, not a sliver of remorse. Just excuses, just deflection." I looked at my sleeping son that night, his face soft and exhausted, and made a decision. They didn't protect him. They didn't protect me. They laughed. So I was done playing nice. They had poked the wrong mother, and I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to make Vanessa remember the day she made my son cry in the rain. And she was going to beg. I didn't sleep that night. Caleb clung to me in his sleep, his tiny arms wrapped tightly around my waist like he was afraid I'd vanished too. I just sat there wide awake, one hand resting on his back, the other clenched around my phone, reading the same message from my mother over and over again. "Don't make this into drama. Your sister's wedding is next week. Don't ruin it like you ruin everything." There it was, the truth laid bare in one text. That's how they'd always seen me. The inconvenience, the messy divorced single mother, the embarrassment, not their daughter, just the storm that always followed the golden child. But something changed in me that night. I was done trying to prove I was worthy of their love. I was done keeping quiet for peace that was never offered to me. I wasn't the poor one anymore. They didn't know who I had become behind closed doors because they never asked. So I made a plan. The next morning, while Caleb played with his toy truck on the rug beside me, I opened my laptop and began the process. I had the savings. I had the connections. I even had the silent investors from a tech project I'd consulted on 2 years ago, the same one Vanessa had mocked as your little side hustle. I called a lawyer, then a few more. Then I called the country club where Vanessa was planning her wedding. It took one conversation and 2 wires to the right people. The venue mine, now the reservation cancelled. They wouldn't know it yet, though. I wanted it to sting. In the days leading up to the wedding, my parents barely acknowledged me. No apology, no check-in on Caleb. My mother posted endless stories about family unity and countdowns to forever. Vanessa had dress fittings, spa days, bridal shoots. But something interesting happened when the club emailed her to say the venue was now under new ownership and unavailable for events of that nature. She panicked. I got the call that evening. "Did you do something?" she hissed. "Excuse me. Don't play dumb. You always wanted to ruin my life." "What did you say to them?" "I didn't say anything. I said calmly, but it's funny you think I could." "You're such a bitter," she began. But I hung up. Instead, I focused on something else. I created a private event, not a wedding, not a party, just a gathering. I invited people they knew, not my parents, not Vanessa, just the ones who'd always looked at me like I was invisible. I booked a caterer, a string quartet. I had photos of Caleb and me framed and placed throughout the hall. There was a slideshow, years of hard work, promotions, milestones, Caleb's drawings. I wanted the world to see what they had chosen to overlook, and I made sure someone would. Vanessa called me again 2 days later. They canned the decorator and the band. "What's going on?" I let the silence linger. "Maybe you should ask Mom and Dad. They seem to think you deserve everything. Maybe they'll manifest it for you. You selfish like you were. When you beat a child with a slipper and threw him into the rain." Dead silence. Then softly, he was being loud, "And you'll remember that every time you hear thunder." I hung up again. But I wasn't done. The day of what should have been her wedding guests showed up to the country club and were redirected with a printed sign that read, "Private celebration of strength and survival, by invitation only." Inside, I stood at the center, Caleb in a tiny suit beside me. I watched as old family friends, distant relatives, and even some of Vanessa's bridesmaids looked at the photo wall and whispered, the betrayal, the success, the story of a woman they didn't bother to know. And when Vanessa finally stormed through the doors, dressed in full bridal glam, tears streaking her mascara, demanding to know why, I looked her in the eyes and smiled. "You hit my son," I said clearly. "You mocked me. You erased us. This question mark. This is what forgotten looks like." She turned to my parents, expecting support. But even they stood frozen because someone had leaked the security footage from her porch that night. The internet had seen it. The news had picked it up. Sponsors had backed out. Her fiancé had quietly flown back to his parents' home. And now, she stood in a designer dress alone, humiliated and begging. Vanessa collapsed into one of the empty chairs, her white dress now wrinkled and soaked in sweat. Her perfectly styled hair clung to her cheeks. Everyone was staring, but no one stepped in to help her. She kept whispering, "This wasn't supposed to happen. This was my day." And for once in her life, no one cared. Across the room, Caleb looked up at me. "Mommy, why is Auntie crying?" I bent down to his level and kissed his forehead because she finally saw the storm she caused. I didn't want revenge. I wanted reckoning. And this was the beginning of it. My parents approached timidly, the same parents who'd watched my child be thrown into the rain and laughed about it. My mother adjusted her pearl necklace nervously. My father cleared his throat. "You didn't have to destroy her life like this." I tilted my head. "Did you say that when she raised her hand to a child?" "She was under stress," my mom replied. "The wedding planning. She beat my son and you laughed." I snapped, my voice sharp now. "You watched a 5-year-old sobbing and shivering and said, 'He should be quieter. You don't get to moralize now.'" My dad tried again, but to air it all out online, that footage going viral, that was cruel. I looked them dead in the eye. She hit a child, and then you posted cake photos like nothing happened. You taught her that cruelty has no consequences. I just corrected the equation. They had no words. Behind me, the string quartet played softly. Caleb was dancing with one of the waitstaff. Guests were still mingling, still talking in hushed tones. Some avoided Vanessa. Others looked at her like she was a stranger because she was. The mask had finally cracked, and it didn't stop there. A week later, I received an email from Vanessa's former fiancé. No anger, no threats, just a quiet message. Thank you. I didn't see it before, but I do now. I hope you and your son are safe and healing. 2 weeks later, a sponsorship company announced they were pulling Vanessa from their influencer roster, citing recent revelations inconsistent with our values. A month after that, my mother tried calling again. We need help, she said quietly. The community won't speak to us. Everyone thinks we condone abuse. I paused. Don't you... She didn't answer. I guess it's just hard, she mumbled. Having your own daughter turn against you? I exhaled slowly. I didn't turn against you. You were never standing beside me to begin with. Click. That was the last time I spoke to her until 6 months later. I was opening my second office. The tech company I had quietly helped build had just expanded into 3 cities. Caleb was in school full-time, thriving, happy, safe. There was a knock at the door. Vanessa. She looked hollow. No makeup, no glamour, just a plain hoodie, dark circles under her eyes and a folder in her trembling hands. I'm sorry, she whispered. I lost everything. Sponsors, clients, people. I thought I was strong, but I was just loud. You were the strong one. She held out the folder. Inside were therapy documents, legal apologies, a letter addressed to Caleb. I don't expect forgiveness, she said. But I need you to know that I'm trying, and I'll never forgive myself for what I did. I didn't say anything, but Caleb's words rang in my ears from that night. Why do they hate me, Mommy? I would never let that boy wonder again. So I took the folder. Not for her, but for him, because he deserved to see that even monsters could learn to kneel. And that even if the world turned against you, truth always finds the light. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.